Well, next time Richard Dawkins is having a talk, I'm going to hop on stage and see how much you guys like that, okay? It's completely
This is
ridiculous.
why I made the point when we first started.
No, they don't dare question their leaders.
No.
Well, I always call them the living gods of atheism.
Yes.
That's what they are. They are the living gods of atheism.
The non sequitur clique one night had a memorial service to Hitchens where them and Emperor Atheist and these other YouTube atheists got together and paid homage to their dead god.
Yeah, that's what they do. This is the fundamentals of the atheist belief. Let's say.
Well, I mean, what's funny is like I would say this is like Christopher Hitchens has probably done more for atheism in his death than he ever did in his life.
Yes.
And the sad thing is that his career spanned decades, even though he's been pushing atheist propaganda for like 5 or 6 years at the most. And that's what he'll be remembered for.
That's the thing is that when Christopher Hitchens, because I was an Emma reader, a much aggrieved reader, honestly, at this point of Vanity Fair, and so Christopher Hitchens wrote a lot of really great stuff, and which is why it's so bizarre to me that these atheists idolize him and they put on a pedestal the absolute least interesting part of his corpus of writing, which was his writings about atheism, which is basically, oh, well, if God created the world, obviously he doesn't care about it that much. And that's his whole argument. And
you saw that you saw him that recording of him in the 80s where he talked about Mandela.
What? Gregor Mendel?
Oh, JMD actually got my picture on my picture I drew up there.
I don't know what you're talking about.
JMD, he has this video or these picture up that I actually drew for his show.
Yeah, I think it's very relevant.
Oh, okay.
You got Sirst there, Shannon Q, the guy from Talk Heathen, a few other atheists.
I'll put them on my Facebook page. You have a real talent, Mr. Brass. Yes.
Thank you. It's just like, I mean, well, here's what's funny is like, I did that joke because Inspiring Philosophy in the video had said this video is just atheist evangelicalism, and so I literally looked up. For reference, I looked up even like. I looked up Jesus and even proselytizing.
Yes.
And I used that as a base so I could do with. I have Richard Dawkins basically preaching the God delusion to the atheist.
Yes.
And that's pretty much what they do. I mean, at this point, it's like I find talking to atheists to be very uninteresting because I can say for certain free will doesn't exist because I can predict them better than any MRI can ever do.
You're only an atheist because of the electrochemistry in your brain. Yes.
And that NPC meme perfectly fits them.
Yes. They were the NPCs even before the anti-Trumpers rose.
I was waiting for that meme to come around.
It was the right meme at the right time, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, what's great, too, is that it actually fits very well since they don't themselves believe that they have free will and are operating purely on the basis of their programming.
And they use the same fucking art. If I had a dime for every atheist that brought up Funny Spaghetti Monster, Pink Unicorn, or Harry Potter, Twilight, Lord of the Rings, Batman, Spider-Man, all those non-arguments.
Well, I mean, to be fair, to be honest, I've used the whole Harry Potter argument myself.
No, the best.
Yeah,
although I at least admit that it's a joke.
Let me reprise the Harry Potter argument for those who may not know. The thing is that Harry Potter is a book, and the Bible is a book. Harry Potter is not true, therefore the Bible is not. That is the argument.
Whenever they bring that up, just quote them. Just quote from the author. I believe in God, not magic. Boom. Yeah. Stop using that argument.
You can easily just look at the fact that she wrote the book entirely based on the Christian principle.
Yeah.
She voted based on the Bible, flat line. You know, whatever. Whenever an atheist tries to hit you with a spaghetti monster nonsense, you just go, yeah, okay. To go, yes, I believe you. I believe that the flying spaghetti monster is real as well. It's just not as good as
it's not an argument. Spaghetti was invented in pre-Renaissance Sicily.
Well, besides that, there's a great clip from William Lane Craig where,
Yes, I've seen this. Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah. It's this flying spaghetti monster, timeless, spaceless, immaterial, and so on and so forth. Just like, well, okay. You're basically describing God. You're just calling it a flying spaghetti monster, but redefining terms.
That was I believe actually what you're referring to was
it's the computer. Yeah,
I can see the universe was created by a computer.
Yeah,
for every quality, William Lane Craig said, "Oh no, this is a special computer."
Yeah.
All you're doing is just describing God by a different name.
Yeah,
it's like I use this comparison to make it like this. It's like, let's say you and your friend are having a discussion and a duck comes by. You call it a duck, but your friend calls it a quacker. And you're having this disagreement, say, well, what's a quacker to you? And you both go over the properties of what makes a duck and a quacker, and you realize you're talking about the exact same thing. It's if by the law of identity, if they have all the same properties, they are the same thing. So just like, it's like if what you're saying, like flying spaghetti monster, supercomputer, whatever, if it has all the same properties, you can call God whatever you want. It doesn't change anything. It's still God.
That's the thing. At the end of every classical argument or first cause argument, they say, "Well, how do we know that the cause was God?" Though I was like, "Well, you could call it Daffy Duck for all I care. The important thing is that it has these described qualities. The is completely ancillary to the argument."
The argument for the flying spaghetti monster it doesn't even have to get that far, because the reason they made the damn thing is out of opposition.
Yes.
So we create an argument out of intuition, which is God. Effectively, we can all call it different things, and we can all conceptualize it differently. But their argument is against God out of opposition. It's.
Well, I mean, you have to remember, though, guys. The evidence for the flying spaghetti monster is very clear. I mean, have you noticed that when pirates were around, climate change was not really much of a thing, but now that their pirates aren't around, climate change is a thing? It's obviously a correlation between the number of pirates and climate change.
Actually, but it's funny. The stuff you guys have been saying is true, but when I got one of those, occasionally at least, with the flying spaghetti monster, my response is a little bit different, which is, okay, well, how about this? I propose, we'll find a place where this is legal, and I'll torture you to death. And if you don't recant, then I'll consider this as serious evidence that you're telling the truth. No one's taking me up on that yet.
I don't understand.
The point is, so somebody's claiming to me that they've had this, mystical vision of the flying spaghetti monster. And so I say, okay, you're making this claim. So let's just, that's a bit of evidence. It's not very much evidence, though. I'd like some more. So how about I torture you to death? And, I'll stop if you recant. And if you don't, and if you keep on claiming that you had this experience with the flying spaghetti monster until you're actually dead, then I'll seriously consider that the flying spaghetti monster might be real.
But you don't even need to go that far. You don't even need to go that far. It's like when the atheists compare God to Santa Claus, it's like, okay, show me the alcoholic who's turned his life around because of Santa Claus.
But
like that. I'm not saying this is a joke. I'm being serious. Tell me one person whose life has been changed by Santa Claus, then you might be able to establish that equivalency.
But Santa Claus did exist. He punched out the heretic.
Well, yeah, Saint Nicholas.
Yeah. But Christopher, you said let me go and torture them to death. I'm pretty sure Logic now is going to make a 4-part video response saying that you advocated for genocide.
I was thinking that exact same thing. with movie clips from Hotel Rwanda.
Well, I mean, you have to guys, you have to remember that Deflating Atheism advocates for stomping out atheists like the cockroaches they are.
Oh, do you have your stomping boot, Andy, that you can show us?
That haunted me for okay, I'm going to get into things here. I had the dumbest motherfuckers coming up to me with that. Oh, he's advocating. He followed me for months, and there's guys who came up to me and started spamming the Facebook group, and it's it got really weird, and it's there was this guy. By the way, let me just tell all the atheists here, I am very quick to ban and block people. So be careful what hill you choose to die on. What's the last what you want your last words to be, because those will be your last words.
I'm quite sure there aren't many atheists watching at this time of night.
Oh well, trust me.
Well, it depends. Yeah.
I mean,
We
are all
if their
atheists,
mom lets
so.
them stay up this late.
We rarely have lives outside the internet, so.
Well, no, this video will be up for perpetuity, but maybe Logic will find it at some point, because he decides he needs a $2,200 more. So yeah, or 12,000. Yeah.
Yeah, Rob. You know the thing is though, you should actually get a. Did you ever see that Simpsons episode where they had, I think in Australia, where they kicked Bart for some infraction, and they had the giant boot they did it with? You need to go to the thrift store and get the biggest boot you can and mount it on the wall behind you, just for the live stream. Just off in the corner is a subtle little.
Just you will be punished. Yes. Okay, this is what I wanted to say. So a guy started saying, and I can imagine you stamping out those cockroaches with your size 6 feet. I thought that was really weird and invasive. I'm sorry that this seems weird. First off, I wear a size 11.5 EE, so it's a wide 11.5. But the fact that this guy
I don't know what 11 is.
This guy was thinking about my feet, and the size of my feet was really disturbing and weirdly invasive. And so it's when you do this, you open yourself up to all sorts of weird hate that's really disturbing, Well,
I mean, you have to remember, man, it's atheists tend to think that when you're not making videos on your channel that you're just surfing.
Yeah, exactly. I live 4 hours inland, yeah. Yeah.
It's funny because they think you're a 20-something. Yeah.
They mock me for being the 90s skater dude, but the 90s skater dude is coming back in vogue. Look at this is my thermometer for what's in vogue. Look at Justin Bieber recently. I mean, look at Jonathan Shaban. They all have the 90s skaters. So I was ahead of that trend. Okay, thank you very much.
By the way, for European people, it's about a size 42.
Yeah, no. In European sizing, it's between a 44 and a 45. Yes.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but my condolences on the double E width. That because I just have regular. I forget exactly what it is. The regular, just one extra wide or wide rather than extra wide, and man, that's hard enough to find. You can only imagine what the super wide is like.
Like I said, I hate to go Trumpy in there, but I think that was supposed to be a slight against my manhood. I guess that wasn't his intention. I can't imagine any other reason why a man would be thinking about the size of my feet. They used to stamp out cockroaches. By the way, literally stamping out cockroaches is a really poor method of extermination.
Hey, can you guys hear me at all?
Yes. It's not the most efficient method, yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Is that clear?
Oh, yes. We have two J's here. We have a doppelganger J.
Yeah. Oh, we do? Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Probably my phone. It's been acting up for some reason.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Introduce yourselves to those who may not know.
Well, I'm Jay. Some of my compadres here know me as Mindo Voltaire on Twitter, and I'm a Christian, and been a Christian all my life, pretty much. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, I've been studying a little bit, like, on philosophy and apologetics a little bit more at this stage of my life. So I've been trying to get really, really interested in, get well invested in it, and to learn how to defend my faith a little bit better than I have in the past. And by the way, Mark, I am a fan of your channel. You've been helping me a lot. I've been watching your videos while I've been on my internship. It actually just ended, but I've been watching a lot of your videos. And so a salute to you, guys. Keep on going, please. Anyway, that's it. That's all I want to say.
I just want to say, can we all admire how dapper the fabulous agnostic is? He as he's away, he's adjusting his little cufflinks there. He looks extremely dapper. He looks better in his absence than he did in his presence. Yes.
Yeah, it's just it's just funny. It's like I actually liked missing the Mark's video on Matt Dillahunty. His the new one where he, not the
Missing
first
his marbles.
one. Missing his marbles. I actually remembered the first one Matt Dillahunty actually commented on and pretty much just said how wrong Christopher was. And it wasn't until Christopher made the other one that you really seen how Matt Dillahunty just screwed up on the points.
Hey, they responded on a video I mirrored from Inspiring Philosophy debunking him, and he got into an argument with this other Christian. He was like, I shouldn't have opened my mouth, and then deleted all of his comments before I could read them.
That's lovely. It's like, apparently he must not have as much time as like you would think, because you think that he'd be out there with all these atheism tours and stuff, but yet now he now has time to comment on YouTube videos.
No, but here's the thing: he's really not that smart, but he has such a strong cult that he's the kind of guy who could take a dump on stage and they still be applauding.
Yes.
Well, to be quite fair, if he did take a dump on stage, that would be more intellectual than probably most of the new atheist movement.
Yeah.
I was going to say, Matt Dillahunty is an okay guy for me, but like, I think the thing I dislike the most about him is his dismissiveness. Like, he's just very dismissive, and it comes off as kind of arrogant a little bit. So, like, I used to be a Baptist. I didn't been through all of this. It's kind of like, okay, well, I don't know. I just don't like that attitude. It's interesting.
Well, what Dillahunty will do is he'll play this ridiculous. He does a show where he pulls on all of these fanatical people, and they say all their supernatural beliefs, and he laughs at them. And then he gets everyone else, all of his audience, to laugh at them. And then everyone's laughing at the same person. And this guy's got absolute zero grace. So, like, he thinks that everyone's going to find this funny. And then he goes on stage with someone who's arguing from, like, our perspective, let's say. And then he expects everyone to laugh at them, but they don't. So he then dismisses everyone because they don't abide by his little criteria, let's say.
Well, you're talking about the calls to the Atheist Experience show.
Yeah,
right?
that's what I mean. I don't know. Once again, I'm over the pond, so I don't really look at all this stuff. But from what I see, is he gets someone on the phone.
Yeah. They
say, you have no proof of God. He says, neither do you. Talks them down with words and then laughs at them.
Yeah.
And all the audience, and then everyone laughs. The internet laughs at them, and all the atheists wet themselves over this ridiculous thing. And it's like okay, so the best you can do, Dillahunty, is to pick someone who's not as intelligent or intuitive or as articulate as like any of us.
Well, can I say people have asked me if I will call into the Atheist Experience show. I've never looked into it. I don't know what I have to do. I haven't figured out when it's on or anything. I do know for a fact, even though I haven't watched the videos, Inspiring Philosophy, who's about 3 times smarter than I am, has called in several times. So yeah, people are doing it. Yeah. So
okay. You mean Johanna Rotz, not IP? Because I know Johannan.
It was Johannan. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the videos. Okay.
You should see when Johannan called in. Like, he just made Dylan Hunter look stupid, and his co-host was like, after about like several minutes, she's like, "I'm bored."
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, if you're not doing what they want you to do, then they'll just hang up on you. So it's very difficult to abide by those rules.
And if you don't grant him his own position, and his favorite fallacy is basically the argument from ignorance. Even though every time he accuses someone of it, he himself is committing it.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's all. Especially with his gumball analogy.
Dude, that's
how
what most
long have
atheists
you been
do.
doing this shit since the late '90s?
I don't.
Well, what were you gonna say, Jay?
I was saying that and that's the thing, like a lot of atheists do that. You know, they come in and they have this presumption. It's like, oh yeah, you don't know, you don't know that God exists, so why should I believe him? Well, it's like, well, you need to do your own research and you need to study this stuff. And honestly, like a lot of atheists, and this goes for theists too. You know, a lot of people have to really stop like assuming that they know so much, about God and the Word of God. Like sometimes we have to learn to elevate ourselves and to really become masters and study it. I know there are some atheists that do it seriously. They study religion and then they continue to go. But a lot of these people, these regular people, these normal people, I don't really think they have like a genuine interest in it. I think, like I said, Matt, even though Matt Dillahunty is one of the stronger types, I think a lot of atheists are like dismissive, and theists too alike. But since the focus is on atheism,
it distinctly afflicts atheists, because I mean, either you want to know that is why I always say the important thing is not how much you know, it's how much you want to know, how curious you are, and you can always suss out the atheist's complete lack of intellectual curiosity when they ask you, "Show me your evidence for God. Please present to me on a little silver platter your evidence for God." That's what they ask you. They don't ask you, "Hey, what are some resources I can investigate so I can make up my own mind?" They always put it as a challenge to you that you have to serve them the evidence for God on a little silver quadroon platter so they can smack it away and say, "No, this evidence displeases me. This is not adequate evidence."
Challenge them.
If they were truly curious, they'd say, "Hey, give me some resources. What are some good books I can read?" But they don't ask you that. I think that just speaks volumes.
When you said what the example is here is that show me your evidence for God.
Yes, they always do it in that very belittling way.
My evidence for God, that's not the same thing. They're not asking, they're asking the question exactly as you phrased it. Show me your evidence for God so I can ignore it. They don't say, show me evidence which I can believe in God.
Yeah.
It's this little game they play where they go, well, I don't believe in the burden of truth, so it's down to you. Despite whatever you're going to say, you can say, well, I had a religious experience, and they go, I don't believe in those things.
Yeah.
I just want to say it's like Matt Dillahunty's black and white fallacy. Whenever you present two options which are contradictory, he'll be like, "Have you showed all the options?" And then if you ask him, "Well, what would be the third option?" he goes, "That's not my burden of proof. That's yours." That's one of his main fallacies.
Well, I mean, here's what's funny about me. It's like, this was actually what happened on Twitter, and like this one atheist said on Twitter, if God really cared about the world, he would come down to us and he would tell us what to do. I said, yeah, sure. It's like, yeah, I wish there was some religion that taught that God came down to earth and told people what to do.
I've got to say this, right? Within Gnosticism, there's a particular explanation for all this phenomenon. It's part of one of the reasons I adhere to it. I think it's the most explanatory tradition. I think it's the truest, obviously. But there's one... Okay, so within Gnosticism, they divide humanity up into three categories: Hylics, Psychics, and Pneumatics. Basically, materialists, intellectuals, and the spiritual. And so within the Gnostic system, there's very little reason to appeal to the Hylics, which is the people you're talking about here. And so that's why historically Gnostics have not been evangelistic. It's why I'm not evangelistic. So I don't familiarize myself with the atheists that you guys do. But there was one time a guy called Godless Cranium, he asked for footage for one of his videos. And I thought, well, this guy seems, when I spoke to him, he was very polite, very, very polite. And I thought, okay, well, I don't give time to atheists much, but to be Christ-like, I'll give this guy the time of day. And so I recorded a clip from, and he used it in his video. But then I noticed, while he was speaking to me very nicely, one-on-one, behind the scenes and in his comment sections, he's talking about theists as if they're subhumans. And I just felt that that's,
he's like that. He's like that. He's two-faced.
Yeah. So I was very disappointed in that because I thought, well, I have a particular view on atheists, but I'll treat others as I think they deserve to be treated. And I felt just a little bit betrayed at the fact that he came across as so nice, but then on the other hand, he's talking about people who believe as I do as if they're subhumans.
Yeah. What happens?
It's good faith is beyond them. They cannot ask you a question in good faith.
A lot of them have this. Dillahunty is an example too. This sort of aggressive niceness. Although it's very often related to like an attempt at social control too, because like there's often this being aggressively nice to you with the implied threat that if you don't act in the way they like, they're going to turn, they're going to disapprove of you, they're going to not be your friend or something. So I've seen that too, but yeah, a lot of them, they are two-faced as has been mentioned. But there's something it's something I'm thinking about, and I'm curious to figure out at some point that on sort of aggressive niceness that like where they turn it on and they're like super friendly to you when they're talking to you, but like it very much goes away when you're not there. And for some reason, my sense is not that it's simple duplicity, but that there's something else. I mean, possibly even some sort of.
You know what it reminds me of, actually? It reminds me of the way someone would treat a child. When you speak to a child, you're almost patronizing to a child. Like, did you have a fun day today? But when you're speaking to other adults, you speak about that child in a different way. So it's almost as atheists have such a disdain for theists that they speak to them like children. And then when they're speaking to other atheists, it's like they feel they're speaking to their equals now. They're not speaking to an inferior anymore. So maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
There's a particular dynamic that you notice a lot is with like a street epistemologist. Normally, when you're like discussing something with a person, it's with the implied assumption that it's a two-way street. I might show you things, but you might show me things too. That's not the operant assumption for most atheists. It's their job to rattle your cage and show you the true light of reason, and they will deign to use their time to enlighten you. They're not expecting to learn anything from you, and so I mean that's it's a different dynamic.
You know what? I'll keep it real. Atheists remind me a lot of like the people that used to pick on me back when I was younger, and it was
nothing better to do.
Yeah, it's like, they have nothing better to do, but to pick on you, and especially if they know you're naive. Oh my goodness, they'll pounce on you.
Kind of like the way we pick on Mr. Brass, right? Yeah.
Fuck you. But yeah, it's this
good comeback.
I've never really gotten with the atheist community because like I sought dialogue with them, and I really did try to get discussions going, but yeah, I found out that a lot of them, it's like they're two-faced to the point where like it's hard to trust them, and it's hard to really have a conversation in good faith. It's like
not all.
Well, yeah, not all. Like there are some good ones, but I find like
those who have godless in their username, you can detect.
Well, yeah, it's sort of like this. It's like if 95% of a group is just horrible people, I'm not really like inductively. I'm going to make some assumptions about you know, I'm not going to go in there with good faith that I'm going to happen to run into the 5% that aren't.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, they're all about, like, atheists are all, like, I've actually seen atheists do this where they say, well, deductive logic is bullshit. It's all inductive. I said, like, deductive is better.
Yeah.
Like, when you go inductively, inductive is just probabilistic.
Well, what's more is that an inductive argument is actually a deductive argument with an omitted premise, which is that the omitted premise is that past events are a reliable guide to future events, which is unprovable because that brings you right back to the problem of induction. So yeah, objectively, yes, deductive arguments are stronger since inductive arguments are a subset of deductive arguments with an intrinsically unprovable premise.
I tend to take a slightly different tactic, which is that because that 5% matters, and so my general approach, like I don't go seeking atheists out, because that seems to me to be pretty much a waste of time. But I will answer if someone comes to me with questions. I will happily answer them. I just find it very, very practical to get good at being able to filter out the insincere ones very rapidly. And one excellent test that I found to filter out insincere ones is just point out that gravity is not empirically provable or empirically verifiable, because empirical means of relating to the senses. You can include like lenses and stuff if you want to, but you can't see gravity, you can't hear gravity, you can't taste gravity, you can't touch gravity, and you can't smell gravity. You can infer its existence from its effects, but that's a reasoned inference. And so the thing is, if people are permitting reasoned inference
that's abductive reasoning.
Yeah, if you permit reasoned inference as a type of empirical proof, then you can empirically prove God, since here's creation, the effect, and you can reason back to you can infer the creator from the creation. And so this is not a controversial scientific point that gravity is not empirically verifiable. You can only reason to it from its effects. If they will fight you tooth and nail on this, these are not sincere people. And some of them will not. Some of them, yeah, okay. And that's a person who's probably reasonable. On the other hand, if they fight you tooth and nail over this incredibly non-controversial scientific point, they're not here for a real conversation. They're not, asking questions sincerely.
Yeah.
Well, here's another funny thing is
what Mr. Brass, and he says, well, it's 95% of atheists act a certain way. I'm just going to behave as if they all act. I think there's actually a value in making blanket statements about atheists and using, I would actually put it like 98%, using the behavior of 98 and kind of making blanket assertions about atheists, is that maybe it will upset those remaining 2% enough that they will actually start policing the other 98% if they don't appreciate being lumped in with that 98%. So I actually have a kind of didactic purpose for making these blanket assertions about atheists.
No, but you got Friend Forever doing that, and they're all just waging war on it.
Yeah.
Who's that?
What they do is they turn on them. They do this all the time. The 98% turn on 2%. They ostracize them.
The 1%.
And they whatever percent we want to go along. We don't know the numbers, but they turn against them. That was a joke
about the left.
Oh, okay. No, I get. Okay, yeah. Sorry. It went well over my head. But that's what they do. They turn on them and they make them basically this kind of religious shill, this hack. And they call them these things. They call them hacks. They call Peterson a hack. They
Porch
call Adam thing.
That's what they call them, porch atheists. Like if you're an atheist and you don't explicitly or implicitly say that religion is cancer for the world, you are a porch atheist, and you will be mocked and ridiculed by the true atheists.
Well, that's what happens when they've driven out why Jesus mythicism seems to be growing among the YouTube atheist community, is because they've so successfully alienated all the atheists would suggest that, yeah, maybe Jesus was a historical person as some sort of a crypto Christian, you know?
Well, if it makes you feel any better, flat earthers are growing too.
Yeah, well, it all has to do with, is your group insular? Is it completely inbred where these bad ideas can grow and thrive?
Well, there's another thing. I talked about this in my video, The Value of Atheist Hacks. But I think most of the atheists we're talking about, the real purpose that they serve is not any sort of intellectual one, but it's very much being an analog for church. You know, that in church, you know, once a week, you have, you know, you've got the stresses and the cares of the week. You've got, you know, you try to be good and you fail and you know, the different things. And once a week, you take time to recenter yourself, to refocus yourself, to rededicate yourself, you know, to being what you want to be. And in a somewhat analogous way, I think that the atheist videos serve a purpose kind of like that. Because, you know, in their ordinary life, they all seem to feel very put upon.
Yes.
You know, as if they're like the only, every single one of them is the only atheist for, you know, 50 miles of where they are. It's the attitude they all seem to have. But so I kind of assume there's probably some psychological truth to this. They feel, you know, very put upon in this world where everyone around them is Christian and they're, you know, one of the rare, you know, the rare atheists and so on. And they find it very psychologically draining and people don't take them that seriously. And so, you know, periodically they need that sense of community, that, you know, refocusing, recentering, you know, getting back to things. And I believe that's what, you know, whether it's Logic or Bionic Dance or you know, Godless Cranium, or those are the ones I know.
They're all pretty much fungible, yeah.
Yeah, that they, you know, when an atheist watches that video, like, here's the person, you know, throughout the week, they deal with the people who are saying, like, you know, what if you're wrong? What if you're making a big mistake? What if you're just an idiot? And, you know, here's the person saying, no, you're not an idiot. You're okay. You know, the world actually makes sense. You know, purposelessness is just fine. Just invent your own purpose. And that's the same as having a purpose, really, you know. And that like that whole
I like that
they do. Well, I find this hilarious. I'd love to point out that the meaning that you give to life goes away when you stop believing in it. This is, you know, distinct from that common definition of reality of that which, when you stop believing in it, doesn't go away. So, but anyway, you know, we can pretend life has a purpose and that's good enough for us. And that sort of rousing spiel, like, you know, and it's always got kind of a similar sort of theme of, you know, they take the Christian and show this guy's a moron, or, you know, occasionally they go for others.
That argument's been debunked.
Yes, exactly. But so it's a reinforcement of that they're okay, that you know, they're not a complete idiot, that in fact it's the other person who's the complete idiot. And so I think that's, you know, why do they ostracize the people who call them to a little bit of a higher intellectual standard? It's because a higher intellectual standard completely gets in the way of the emotional need they have that this fulfills.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think Deflating Atheism has, and Max has described them perfectly in the past as cry bullies, because one of the first thing they'll do, and they'll try to use your own standards against you. So they'll come at you as aggressive as you like, but the moment you put up the slightest bit of resistance, even you don't curse, you're not overly harsh, but they'll object to it on the grounds of your morality, a morality that they would otherwise deride.
Yes.
Well, yeah, here's what I always found funny is, like, I always notice that these, I call them SJW atheists, and it's like, I always found it funny with them is, like, I make jokes on Twitter about Christians and all this stuff, and here's what's funny. Christians don't complain to me about the Christian jokes I make on Twitter. However, if I make so much as one joke about atheism, even if it's just a little kid's joke about atheism, I get like 3 or 4 different atheists yelling at me about how, oh, I'm not taking them seriously. I'm like,
because Christians have been taking these jokes with a thin skin for as long as there has been entertainment media.
Oh my god!
Well, yeah, it's like, well, I mean, it's like funny. It's like one Christian joke I had made, and I actually got Christians that actually commented and laughed at it. I said, where I said, it was like a little script thing where I said, where a Christian came up to me and said, "Hey, do you believe the Bible is reliable?" I said, "Sure, it makes good firewood." So it's reliable in some ways.
Like where those depraved anti-theists who have to joke about God being raped, God raping Mary, and you're like, no, it's not raping. She liked it.
Oh yeah. Well, no, it's like what happened is that like I put it like in a script format. And it says an atheist says, "How can you believe that God raped Mary?" And I said, "Oh, well, Mary wasn't raped. She completely liked it."
There is, I think, very unfortunate instances where atheism and like SJWism, they will grab onto any sort of grievance they think could pull people into atheism. Now, it goes into this ridiculous like feminism. It's like God raped Mary. And it's like, well, maybe this will get atheists. It doesn't make any sense, but maybe we'll get feminists on board. And they say, oh, well, they try to get black people on board and say, well, Christianity is the white man's religion. The slavers were Christian.
I can attest to that.
Be atheists with us. They will. It is absolute desperation. They will grab onto anything to pull people into atheism. And so it's. Yeah, they get these little SJW things, but it's so superficial.
Well, I'm gonna tell you.
And they have no sense of humor outside.
Here's what's funny is like me and Engine both agreed on this. Is like whenever I get into arguments with SJWs and atheists, I don't even make a logical distinction between the people I'm arguing with because I don't see the distinction.
Yeah.
It's like whenever I see an atheist arguing with an SJW, I always compare that to when a Protestant argues with a Catholic. They ultimately agree on the same. They're reading the same script. They're just disagreeing on the details.
Yeah, well, that's my whole thing with Christianity is the white man's religion. It is identity politics. Basically, is that your fealty is first and foremost to your tribe. Is that you must surrender your individual value judgment forming capacities out of complete fealty to your tribe. So it doesn't matter what you think about Christianity, whether Christianity makes sense to you. It's no, these people are your enemies. Therefore, you have to believe what we believe. That is complete SJW identity politics thinking.
I was gonna say, yeah. I've definitely heard that in the black community, especially. I haven't heard it by like other some of the SJWs that I hear on YouTube.
Well, have you heard like what they call like black consciousness? People? It's like they're exploiting that to try to draw people into atheism.
And that's true. It's very true, and because I see it more so on Facebook. And when I look at the comments, I see people look at these people, you're black, you still believe in this and all that. And it's like, well, if you did your research, actually, it actually is a lot of Christianity. Well, it actually started in Africa.
Yes.
Yes, Augustine of Hippo.
The Bible even talks about churches in Ethiopia.
Even before Augustine of
Augustine of Hippo.
It was Saint Mark also who started an Egyptian church called the Coptic Church, and it's been around for 1900 years. So it's like, yeah, you guys got to do your history and your research because.
But anti-theists don't know history very much.
Well, don't you know Jesus? Don't you know Jesus was white anyway, even if he did exist?
No, Jesus was black, bro. Chill out. Come on now. He had.
He was Chinese or Mexican.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you know why Jesus wasn't born in Mexico?
Brass has got another joke. Okay.
Why?
Because God couldn't find a virgin woman or three wise men there.
I love how JMD Apologetics was completely dispirited in the way he was asking for the punchline of the joke. It's like let's get this over with.
Well, I've heard some of his jokes before.
Well, JMD knows me already, so
yeah.
Like, here's what's actually pretty funny about me is like
I don't trust what you believe is actually pretty funny.
Well, me and JMD, like, I actually do videos with him on just like clearing up like misconceptions about the Bible, and it's like I find it funny because like one guy responded to one of the videos I made with JMD, and he was saying like, "Oh, this guy, he's putting like all these Christian, like, why would a deist be working with a Christian?" I say it's quite clear. Honest, I agree more with Christians than I do atheists.
Yeah.
So, have you ever? You can work.
Ben
Here's what's funny is like he wasn't the only person that said something like that. Like there was this Calvinist who got on JMD because I work on videos with him. He says, "Oh, so you have the gall to have someone that's not a Christian work on a video with you."
Is that our mutual friend?
It's like, dude, it's like wouldn't you think it would hurt my cause anymore? Like if I'm a deist and I'm like, and my video might help Christians out.
Man, Brash, you know you have to protect the tribe, okay? That's what.
It's like
protect the tribe, all right.
That's what I was going to say.
There's nothing in the deist scripture that says I'm obligated to proselytize to everyone.
Hey, I got a quick question for Chris, real quick. Going back to your gravity analogy, I think I can take it a little bit further. Have you heard of qualia?
Hmm?
Yeah, I think that would be a good perspective. Not to literally, like put anything like as a hypothetical, like how we might not be able to really prove that we see the same colors. We see colors, but I don't know if your red is my red, and it mind boggles me because actually it was before Vsauce, because Vsauce added a little bit more to it, watching him and him talking about it, but because that's how I found out the term qualia. But I had a conversation with a friend, and we were talking about colors, and he was like, you couldn't really prove that we see the same colors, and I was just jumping through hula hoops trying to like prove it to him. And at the end of the day, I found I'm like, I really can't, because it's nothing tangible. It's nothing empirical about it, really, besides, what I see in my own mind. It's about my perception. So, somewhat. So, so do you agree with that? Like, do you think that would be a good hypothetical to throw out there?
Well, it's the problem of other minds, basically.
Yeah.
But
that's
there's a linguistics problem. Is that whatever is outside of what is immediately discursive is kind of pretty much meaningless in spoken conversation. So I mean,
well, some atheists make me doubt there's actually other minds out there than my own.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you're not alone.
The reason I go for gravity, the reason I like it is that specifically that it is a non-controversial thing on what is supposed to be the subject that they themselves know about and like and affirm.
Well, I mean, gravity obviously doesn't exist, so yeah.
Well, the Earth is flat.
So that's why I like to go with gravity. I mean, there are a lot of. It's just one of many, many tests. There are a lot of ways. I mean, pretty much any reasonable thing, would work. Although it actually kind of tying into, I was going to say another thing about sincerity is that it's always interesting to see the reaction to the skeptics when you ask them, okay, so, I'm not supposed to believe in something till I've seen evidence for it. Okay, so do you have evidence to offer that you're an honest person? Or do you want me to take this on faith? They never take that well. Never. Not a single one of them is like, no, good point. I believe something without evidence there. So let me give you some evidence that I'm an honest person. I've never seen that. Those get so offended.
Well, they would probably say, don't take my word for it. Go look for it yourself.
You'd think that. That's not been my experience.
Yeah. Which is the homework fallacy.
Which is doing your own research fallacy that they fail to do a lot of times. But
well, the homework fallacy is like basically when you're in an argument and you say, "Oh, well, just go off and look on, it's my arguments are out there
wiki.
somewhere."
On Iron Chariots or Rational Wiki.
I
mean,
literally, an atheist told me, if I ever am bitten by the bug to present an apologetic argument, I should do a Google search for the name of that argument with the word debunked. And only if that Google search yields 0 results am I allowed to make that argument. That was seriously said to me.
I do that, guys. I do that.
Just Google search atheism debunked.
Yes.
That's all.
Well, there's nothing to debunk. It's just nothing.
Belief, yeah.
It's a lack of belief, guys. I lack a belief that you're honest right now. That's what I'm gonna start saying to atheists.
Oh, I've done that. Yeah, you get fun results. I guarantee you get interesting results when you say that. I haven't seen the evidence. The default position is that it doesn't exist, so I lack a belief in your honesty. I'm not saying you're a liar.
The only thing is that they can tell that you're being sarcastic, but man, I you know what? I'm gonna have to take them serious. I'm like, no. I don't think that you. I don't see any evidence that you're honest. I'm really about to start saying that. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a fascinating experiment to run. I mean, it's a bad sign when taking a person's belief seriously gets them angry at you. But it does. I mean, very, very reliably. Like take their principles seriously. Like you're not supposed to believe in something until they've met the burden of proof. Like are you claiming that you're an honest person? Are you claiming that you're capable of rational thought? There's one guy I actually asked him, now I don't want to, waste my time reading the things that you write unless I have a good reason to believe that there's something of value there. So do you have any evidence that the things you say have value? Didn't take that well. They never take any of that stuff well. I mean, in theory, they should pat you on the back for like your insight.
Your ultimate skeptical position. My favorite thing is to say, like I say, France doesn't exist. Prove me wrong. I was arguing against this guy who lived next to the English Channel. It's like I can see France. I can see France from my office building. I'm like, no, that's personal anecdote. That doesn't count. This guy was like, oh, so you have no intellectual honesty whatsoever. It's like that's what they'll go to. They'll just get very angry and say you have no intellectual honesty just because you're using their own standards against them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's what you do. Really, it's like one guy says prove God exists to me, and I say, all right, well, first you prove that you exist.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah. And they'll say, well, I'm typing this message out to you. I said, well, think about it. Think about it. You honestly believe that with all these constants and stuff, I mean, the odds of that there's a monkey just sitting down on the keyboard just typing out your messages is much lower than the constants.
Yeah, well, it's much more likely that you're just a Boltzmann brain,
Well, yeah, it's like, and they'll say, I'll come visit you. I said, well, how do I know I'm not a brain in a vat and I would just be imagining you're visiting me? Eventually they just stop.
Yeah.
When you come across people who assert that Jesus never walked the earth, or there's serious doubt as to whether Jesus ever walked the earth, just link them to Tim O'Neill's site and be done with it, because they're not arguing with any more than younger or flat earthers.
Well, there are 3 ways I noticed. There are 3 ways that atheists never hold themselves to the same level of consistency they hold theists to. The first one is the burden of proof, which I mentioned earlier on. If you said, I have an experience, which is the burden of proof for me, they would just go, well, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in the burden of proof. I don't believe in that experience.
Which is fair. You don't have to believe somebody else.
It's the fairest, which is why I put it first. It's the fairest one. The second one is cherry picking. So we could cherry pick something from the Bible, as earlier on Max did, and said something along the lines of female empowerment is a positive according to the Christian faith. Well, then they would pick slavery. So it's okay for them to cherry pick something from the Bible which is negative to support their narrative. But when we say something against that, apparently it's bad for us. And the third one is basically science. So if we treated any other field of study like they do with the Bible, and we just came along and went, well, we're going to see half of this and then make value judgments based on half the amount of knowledge we have, that wouldn't fix. If you said, I only believe in half the amount of the space that we can see, you'd be laughed out of the Oxford. You wouldn't be able to take
another
half
thing
the
is like I actually get into it with them is on the history. Is like a lot of them are humanist, or like they like to say like human life has this. It's funny they say human life has this sacred value, but then are completely fine with abortion.
Yeah, it's just like the emotional.
It's a similar thing. Yeah, they're okay to accept half of what they perceive to be reasonable.
Also,
but then when you,
it's just like, I mean, here's what I always say with the humanists is that
I want to hear what a fabulous agnostic has to say.
Oh yeah.
But what I'm saying is when you take something like theology from a scientific perspective, or religious secularism, secular utility of religion, okay, that's a scientific study. It's okay they stop halfway along. If you were to say, I don't believe in this much of science, you would be laughed. We would be silent immediately. If I said, well, I don't believe God made the rest of the universe, but only made the solar system, they would laugh at you and say, well, that's so stupid. But when they come along and say something along the lines of, well, God is against homosexuality, well, we're supposed to take that as face value. Well, no, because we know the rest of the stuff. We know the remaining qualifications of theology, which they don't know. But they never hold themselves to that level of consistency. They always suggest that they know everything about the subject, whilst only knowing half the subject. But if we did the same thing about science, they would pull us up and say, well, you don't know anything about cosmology. You don't know anything about the carbon dating of the world. Well, it's okay to perform that action. The same thing. I'm just a hoodoo wisdom, spiritualist nonsense person who believes in a magical sky monster. But when you do it, apparently this ultimate avatar guru of living atheism. That's my major point about those things, basically.
Yeah. But by the way, are you using like a Wi-Fi connection or something? Because you are kind of dragging on some of this stuff.
Oh, sorry. I apologize.
No, you don't need to apologize. It's just, if you want to hang with us again, you need to get your technology right.
Well, I had that problem. I had
technology.
Okay.
I was having that problem. I had Jay Warner Wallace on my channel, and he's in California, and it wasn't good at first, and then it just started getting choppy for like a half hour. Just like, oh,
all right. Sucks. So JMD, I need you to provide your burden of proof of that happened, and then we will believe you. Okay.
Prove you exist.
He's not saying it didn't happen. He's not saying it didn't happen. He merely lacks a belief that it happened. Yeah.
It just lacks a belief, bro.
Wait, prove you exist, and if you can't do that, then there's no objectioner, so I don't have to take your objection seriously.
That's because I'm extraterrestrial, okay? That means I am.
Well, prove you're extraterrestrial.
I can't prove.
I like a belief that you're extraterrestrial.
Well, I mean, it's just like I get on the humanists as well. It's because like they seem to take this idea, like, because they don't know nothing about history, of course, so they have this grandiose idea that like the sacredness of life and how much human life has value is just self-evident.
Yes,
it's like but here's the thing: if you actually look at history, if you look at especially the Romans and the Greeks, like they threw children over walls, and they didn't have that whole idea of human life being inherently sacred comes from Christianity.
And Christopher's having a laugh here. Christopher's having a laugh here. Yeah.
Oh, and they threw those Christians to lions.
Yeah, the idea that secular humanism is so funny. Although it's hilarious. I once looked up the definition on Wikipedia, and the closest it came to having a definition was something like the belief that a secular morality is possible. That's not very contentful.
Well, I mean, I just say, like, here's what I find funny about them is, like, they'll say, well, atheists can come up with a moral, like, there's so many, like, they'll just blanketly say secular morality, and just say, and just expect, and you know, and they'll just say, yeah, it's self-evident that secular morality is better. I said, well, technically, nihilism is a secular morality. Yeah. It's not. It's completely not dependent on God at all. Yeah. In fact, it works in the complete absence of God a lot of times.
Also, you should point out. You also should point out that the cult of reason emphasized humanism.
Well, yeah, and it's like, yeah, and here's the thing: is like, even Marxists called themselves humanists, and they considered it their sacred duty to rid the world of the undesirable humans, so the real humans could stand above.
Well, let's not get into that. I think I would take issue with that on historical terms. But I don't know if this is what we were discussing on this chat or before we went live. But we were talking about like Twitter bios. I love it when they have in the Twitter bio, it's like rationalist, skeptic, humanist. It's like all these
science enthusiast,
science
expert.
I would love to see one of them say, you know, I'm a rationalist. I'm kind of 50-50 on the humanism part, but maybe like sometimes, I'm an atheist, but other times, I might be this or that. It's like no, they just accept all of these terms at one point. Yeah.
Oh, hey, I quick question. I have to get going in a minute. It's late here, but just wondering.
Dude, you're in the same time I am. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but you guys collectively have a lot more experience of the atheist community than I do. Is there anyone of these people who have godless in the name where if you replace godless with brainless, it would be inaccurate?
No, brainless cranium.
Yes,
brainless engineer.
To be very honest,
brainless Ireland.
Whenever any of you guys mentioned godless cranium, godless engineer, any of those guys, I was like seriously searching my memory. Like, who is this guy? I was like trying to get some sort of association. I was just coming up blank.
Very original name, by the way.
Wait, I can give you a clue who godless engineer is. He's the guy that did a response video to your video and had an abortion like he had a charity live stream for Planned Parenthood.
Thank you. Yes, he did a charity drive on Facebook for Planned Parenthood. Yeah, thanks a lot for that, dude. Yeah.
Wow.
He also has like 9 or 10 Facebook pages with Parenthood, raising your kids without God or something, and he bought like hundreds of thousands of likes on Facebook.
Wow.
He bought them, yeah, and then he had those links to the Finnish sex ed videos, and he had like pornographic things.
Oh yeah, teach your pornography to kids.
Yeah.
Wait. Where do I? I'm not saying I'm going to go on there to look at the porno. I'm just saying, what's the name of the group again? Just so I can be informed to not go on there, of course.
Or take your word for that, but
yeah, we'll quote unquote.
He'll take time out of looking for his other porno to look at.
Prove you're honest.
Well, I mean, here's what's actually pretty funny. There's this one creepy dude that actually was stalking Max, and this guy literally is. The guy's name is Look-a-Pig, I believe.
Oh yeah.
And he basically sent Max like Catholic porn and these gory videos of a guy getting his dick chopped off.
Oh my god.
And I actually got sent some of that too.
Yeah.
And I basically said, look, I don't need you guys to send me Catholic porn and guys getting their dicks chopped off. I already do that on my spare time. Thank you enough. And my vids are better.
Your material is better. Yeah.
You should see his response video.
That was like. I'll give you props for that. I'll give you props for that.
Hey guys, I have to go. Have a good night. God bless.
Oh wait,
God bless.
Christopher. I've posted a few comments in your videos about asking for doing a podcast. I don't know if you remember those or not.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Scheduling is always hard for me. That's the thing. But yes, if you go to my website, send me an email. There's a contact page, and not it'll take me a while to get back, but I promise you I will get back to you, and make it happen.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
have your people talk to his people. Yes.
It's more, if you can be patient, it'll definitely happen. I've got 3 little children, and so time is not easy to come by, but I will. So
cool.
Well, I very much appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to join us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and congratulations, by the way.
Thank you,
was this the 3rd anniversary and 6,000, or just the 3rd?
No, I
anniversary?
haven't gotten to 6K yet, but yeah,
Okay.
that was the hope. But yeah,
Well, congratulations on 3 years.
thanks, man. Have a good night. God bless.
He also broke, Rob also broke, another milestone too. He now got officially more than 15,000 dislikes on
That
his
is actually
channel.
objectively true. That is objectively true.
Well, and he's gone 3 years without going insane, so I'm not faring too well after my first year.
Dealing with fucking atheists would do that.
And here's the thing, and at least 3,000 of those 15,000 dislikes are people that actually sat through and watched the video.
Exactly. Most of them are before the videos even went live. No, that's the thing. It's like he's going crazy without dealing with atheists. I feel like really derelict because I don't even deal with atheists anymore. I don't know what's going on when you guys talk about godless this and that and these completely fungible YouTube titles. It's like I barely even know what's going on these days. When I'm on YouTube these days, I'm like looking at a list of violent videos or something. I'm not looking at atheists. I feel really derelict. It's just really difficult for me to watch atheist videos.
Well, just do it. You just do it. Just make all your videos just ragging on Atheist Republic.
This
is like
I did a trilogy, and I will say, to the credit of Atheist Republic, they actually post my videos on their page. And so that's actually a continuing source of traffic to my YouTube channel, is especially the last one where I have the app and it blows up my trailer. They've posted that like 3 times, and it's a constant influx of people downvoting my videos. But again, it's a monetized video, so I could like buy like 2 gumballs at this point with the amount of money I made from monetized views,
Hopefully a pizza one day.
let's not go crazy, okay? Let's not go crazy.
Well, they send the troglodytes after you whenever you upset them.
Yeah, well, there's an associated discussion group for Atheist Republic. So I always know for some reason all three of the trilogy videos suddenly get all these people, and they're never arguments. It's always like, you're so dumb. Oh my! It's like you. Oh my! They don't even say "oh my god" because that's not what they believe in. That's how I talk. But it's like oh, you're so dumb.
You believe in goat herder, peasants.
Yeah, they even go that far. I'm a little dissolute at this point, honestly. But yes.
Well, when you believe in a flying spaghetti monster, basically, you might as well believe like a Bronze Age goat herder. Cyrus actually tried using that one, and I literally asked him when was the Bronze Age, and it's like 2000 BC it starts. Which was like, well, the Book of Job was written that time. Just like, yeah, but the other 65 books are quite after. But
Okay, so to retroactively answer the question of this dude, the fabulous agnostic, Cyrus is my favorite YouTube atheist.
I agree. I like making fun of him. We go back and forth.
He's a very smart guy, and he's very honest.
Yeah. He made a video saying the omnipotence paradox and who created God are bullcrap arguments, which I enjoyed. And he has great philosophy videos too.
I was on with.
Hey, what's his YouTube channel called?
Just Cyrus.
SURUS.
IIS, I'm pretty sure.
I was just on a stream with him before this.
SURIS.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it. Okay.
We were talking about retro games that withstood the test of time.
Boy.
Oh yeah, on my most recent icon where I responded to the non sequitur show, if anyone saw that, because they made comments about me, and I basically had a whole dispute with Steve.
Yeah.
In my comment section, but
not a piece of shit.
Yeah.
No, with that,
Kyle. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Steve are still friends, but just this I had to call out because I thought it was complete hypocrisy on his part. But anyway, this icon, there's a clip that Sirs was doing a debate, and they mentioned my video, and Praise, who did an excellent job, called them clowns. It was pretty funny. But basically, I put on the thumbnail, non sequitur response, and then there's a picture of Sirs and everyone on there, and I put a subtitle under Sirs, known like Sirs JK.
Well, because they call it, it's just like the the atheists who dare to say that Jesus was actually a historical person.
Oh yeah,
just all turn on them.
You should have seen the live chat on that non sequitur when they had Tim O'Neill in there to talk about that.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna get going here soon. By the way,
okay.
See you, JMD.
Have a good night, man. I love how enthusiastic Mr. Brass was to see you go. Yes.
Same.
Yeah, well, it's because he's petty.
Okay, I need to tell that. Do you know about that story, DA?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I don't know shit, apparently, yeah.
So I have first-hand testimony to this, Mr. Brass. I was in a private chat with Hunter Bailey, and I invited Brass on. There's this one atheist called CJ, and we were just arguing back and forth about stuff, and it was just like it's more logical to be an atheist. Don't bring up anything about God when you speak about logic. And I literally asked him, "What is logic?"
Yeah,
and then he couldn't answer me. He was just like, "You're petty. I never want to talk to you again."
That is such a great question because they'll never.
I know
0.1% of atheists would be able to answer the question. What are you referring to when you refer to logic? When you call Christianity illogical, whatever. What does logic mean? They just assume it is synonymous with these very vague ideas of what is commonsensical to them. They don't realize it has a very technical meaning.
Yeah, it's a form of math back with language, basically.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. What's funny about it is like JMD asked me that question, what is logic? And I literally just pulled up the Oxford English Standard Dictionary on that.
Well, you do that with all my videos. Like, what is philosophy? You did that with that one. I'm pretty sure.
If you want to know what logic is, just ask Philosophy Tiger on Twitter to ask what logic is.
I actually
he'll post a picture of a bunch of books and lecture you on.
I would say it is a set of rules of inference by which we could deduce necessarily true conclusions from a given set of premises. How about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Mine would be, this is from my Hurley textbook, logic book called Concise Introduction to Logic 101. Well, basically, a body of knowledge for assessing whether an argument is sound and valid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's simple as that. And then, of course, you have to ask them, well, what does it mean for an argument to be sound and valid? And missing the Mark's video, logic lesson for atheists, I would suggest for them.
Well, what atheists would invariably say is, well, you're the person who think it's logical that they're talking to snakes. It's like, you have no clue. You have no clue.
Well, no, talking snakes aren't illogical.
Exactly.
Under their world, they'll just pop into being out of nothing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there are talking snakes. I knew a talking snake. Then he turned on me. His name is Steve McRae.
But yes. Okay.
Well, it's like
we can get into that. We can get into Steve McRae and Kyle. We can broach that subject if you want.
Well, yeah, it's like yeah, and well, I mean, like Max on like a group. Like in the Red Pill Religion group.
I mean, are you out? Do you want to say your goodbyes or something?
I can stay for like 5 more minutes, and I will.
Okay. I thought I'd say these words before, but Mr. Brass, you could speak now. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Max had posted in the Red Pill Religion group that, all right, how many of you guys believe in demons? And I said, Yeah, I believe in demons. I vote for them all the time. And it's like I find it like all this political stuff because like this is what the atheist movement is really coming down to nowadays is politics, and they're eating each other alive over it.
Yes.
It's like I find it funny is because like when you notice this, anytime that atheists try to start a group, they inevitably end up chewing each other out over it.
Well, because the dynamic is very similar with atheists and SJWs. All they know how to do is attack. So it is invariable that because it's just like the SJWs. They say, oh well, what is it? It's like white gay men or the something. It's like this is the this of this. It's like everyone discovers their level of privilege. And it's just like atheists. Oh well, you aren't pure enough an atheist. You actually talk to people who believe that Jesus was a historical person, and so all they know how to do is attack. So eventually they turn on each other, and that's the thing is. What happened is that the Atheism Plus came along and they tried to get everyone on board with this kind of doctrinal purity. Yes, we're all atheists. We all believe in the patriarchy and white privilege, and we're all pro-choice, and we all assent to all of these liberal ideologies. Well, guess what? A lot of them didn't, and so that ended up splitting them in half. And then when the Reason Rally 2016 came along, it was all SJW, and it had like literally like 1,000 people showed up, like maybe like 4,000 people at the very most showed up to Reason Rally 16. Was like all SJW. A lot of them were pissed because they really SJWism had destroyed their movement.
Well, yeah, and I always look at it like this. The patriarchy, when you don't believe in the devil, but you still want to believe in an all-powerful, all-seeing, and malevolent entity that seeks to destroy the innocent.
Mr. Brass, that may be the smartest thing you've ever said. Thank you.
It's just like, it's true. It's like, I do literally consider SJWism a religion.
Yes. Very much.
And not even a good religion.
Yeah.
Well, I consider it a religion on the same level that I consider like the people that believed like that Jesus was going to come down in a UFO and fulfill a prophecy.
Like Heaven's Gate or something like that.
Yeah, that the Heaven's Gators. That's what I'm getting at.
Well, what?
They were the people who died with their Nikes on. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's when the Colin Kaepernick thing was going through. I made a lot of
Jesus coming down in a UFO. Picture that, bro. Oh my goodness, that would be amazing.
Actually, well, it would explain a lot.
Well, that's like the sequel to Mormonism.
Fun fact. Mormonism. No, Twilight is Mormon fan fiction, and 50 Shades of Grey is Twilight fan fiction in turn.
Oh my gosh! I've never seen
Myers.
Hey, don't shame me, but I actually like Twilight though. Like, I felt like that was a good series. Like,
okay, let's walk away.
Prove it.
That's really embarrassing. So let's.
No, not really. No, if you like vampires.
I tried reading 50. I tried reading 50.
You like sparkly vampires, which makes him more fabulous than the fabulous.
I mean, I don't see it as a love story. I mean, I like it because I like vampires and I like werewolves.
Or
like
50 Shades of Twilight.
Like a Native American werewolf.
Jacob, bro. I think you
like Native American werewolves.
We are giving atheists so much ammunition with this video.
I don't fucking care. They're uncultured anyway.
These people like Twilight.
Yes, I love.
I don't.
Well, you just have to remember. Wait, you just have to remember deflating atheism. Make sure to say something along the lines that you want to stomp atheists out with a
like Twilight book.
Oh, here's one. I got one. Twilight is better than Potter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like I actually find it funny is like how they always go on these tangents about religion and going into politics with that is like they make such grand spiels about the Christian right. I was saying like the atheist left is any better.
Brass, didn't you know that Christians are trying to turn our country into a theocracy?
Yeah, and here's what's funny about that. Godless engineer can't even stick with a consistent freaking definition of a theocracy.
Oh my god, that thing.
Oh, you should have seen the debate with the distributist.
No, it wasn't. It was the distributist.
Yeah, you should see that.
That was brutal. That was brutal. And by the way, the distributist, he doesn't like Max, and so that rubs off on me because he doesn't understand the difference between escaping atheism, deflating atheism. I don't have any problem with that. But yeah.
And God's engineer was like, who's Oliver Cromwell? Who are the Huguenots?
No, that was the thing. Is like he had a deductive logical argument. It's like, okay, the communists had a system of government that lacked. They had an ideology that lacked a belief in God, which makes them. And it's like Godless Engineer was completely resisting the logical consequence of the argument.
To be fair to Godless Engineer, he was being strawmanned.
What's that?
To be fair to Godless Engineer, he was strawmanned.
I disagree with that. I think he was completely being forced into a corner. And
I
was being sarcastic.
I knew.
Well, here's what I put it like. I make this deductive argument. To be secular means to believe that the church and state should be separated. Communist, the Soviet Union believed that the church and state should be separate. Therefore, the Soviet Union was secular.
Yeah.
Well, so was Jesus. Render unto Caesar.
Yeah.
Read Romans 13. But I'm gonna go now, everyone.
See you, JMD.
Was there something I wanted to say? Deflating atheism?
No, it wasn't important. Have a good night.
Oh, okay. See you, everyone.
All right,
what an asshole! I'm kidding. I'm not saying that about everyone when they leave. Well, my favorite argument, this goes back like 10 years. It's like, if atheism is just a lack of belief in God, then like the Betty Crocker cookbook is an atheist text just as much as the God belief. God. Where will you find any reference to God in the Betty Crocker cookbook?
None.
So therefore, it's an atheist text.
Yes.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. They don't understand history at all with it. It's like, they'll say that the Constitution or something or the Bill of Rights or whatever is a godless document. I said, like you said, it's like you said. That's like sort of like saying that Elmo, like Tickle Me Elmo, is a godless toy because it doesn't have God directly written on it. It's like,
hey, godless Elmo. Hey, that.
It's just like. The thing is like there's an easy way of knowing why that it didn't mention God on there. It's because they thought that the state would do that. They thought the state would decide that on their own. The only thing that the First Amendment really protected against it was to stop the government from intruding on religion. It had nothing to do about the religion intruding on the government.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, well, they'll say, well, what about Jefferson's letter? I said, well, look, if you read the Danbury Baptist letter, he was quoting one of their founders, one of their influential leaders who made that whole hedge, make a hedge between church and state. And we know for a fact when he said that, he was talking about getting the government out of religion because the government was hurting religion.
Yeah.
It's like the whole thing with the First Amendment is it basically said that the United States government couldn't make a national religion.
Hey, you want to look to the founding fathers as godless role models. They fucked slaves.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, I mean, here's the funny thing: is atheists have this fetish with the Enlightenment period.
Which I never.
But here's what's funny: is like they'll say, "Well, look, the Enlightenment period did all these things for slaves." I said, no. Like, yeah, there were Enlightenment speakers that talked about the evils of slavery, but that's all they did. They talked about the evils of slavery. They never really activized against it.
When they argue about Christians owning slaves during the on the plantations, I always ask them what excuse atheist slave owners had, since they didn't even the Bible.
As the major person in this conversation from the country which ended slavery, I just want to get that one in. I don't mind.
By the way, colonialism actually ended slavery. Yeah,
which was ours. I'd like to point that one out, but there we go.
Sorry about that, empire, dude. I'm sorry, it's slipping away.
If you guys didn't have a problem with it, we'd have all been fine. Okay. There would have been no problems. We'd have just continued as no problem. There would have been no Catholics in America whatsoever. I don't see what your problem is. But I get what you're saying. The atheists, they like to believe that the Enlightenment was this big slam dunk period against religion. No, the Enlightenment was a religious period. If you look at the long list of Enlightenment thinkers, 2/3 of them, if not more, are religious thinkers, and the rest of them are in a way that they didn't talk about religion. So it's got nothing like the Enlightenment is either a religious principle in essence, or it's got nothing to do with religion, but in a positive way rather than a negative way.
Oh, you want to know something funny and ironic? On a Twitter or Facebook, I forgot which, some atheists posted a picture of a Christian church, and then they posted a library, and they called it an atheist church. Guess what library that was?
It was Trinity Church in Dublin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is yeah. The thing about the Enlightenment is that maybe they were not maybe the church was not their direct benefactor. That does not mean that they were atheistic. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm getting ready to go. I will continue to watch, probably be in and out, but hop out the live.
Okay.
And it was nice chilling on the stream. Congratulations and happy 3-year anniversary.
Thank you, man. Feel free to join again if we're going for another 3 hours or so, which we might very well be.
Okay, that's fine. All right. Okay.
Have a good night.
All right, you too.
Yeah, whose turn was it to speak? Let's go with you, fabulous agnostic, because
what was I talking? I don't even know what I was talking about.
We're talking about the Enlightenment.
Well, okay, so we mentioned the Enlightenment, which I don't believe was this big. I remember I was at university and we were talking about this. I did film studies at university, which is the most pointless subject to talk about something like the Enlightenment. And really,
I took. Let me be in complete honestly, my only tertiary education was in graphic design school. I mentioned Ferdinand de Saussure in my first day of
not Ferdinand de Saussure.
Okay.
It's one of those postmodern names, Ferdinand de Saussure, that you hear and you just go, I'm sick of hearing this goddamn name. It's like Francis Truffaut or any of you just go, I don't care anymore. I'm done with these people. They have nothing to contribute.
We were talking about signs. We were talking about the types of signs. Yes.
Well, yeah, and here's what's funny that they never bring. Here's what they never bring up during the Enlightenment. During the Enlightenment time was the height of the witch hunts.
Yes. Well, that was in America, but yeah.
Yeah. So they never mention that part. That's always conveniently left out.
Well, I'll go. Go on. Sorry. Go on. You carry on.
Yes, I mean they always conveniently. They don't ever know anything about these topics, and they have the goal to really ask, like, well, they think the church needs another reformation. I said, do you freaking know what the last reformation was?
Well, okay,
people died.
We'll stumble into the conversation that I've been wanted to have since we started, I guess, is the church in the USA compared to the church in the UK. Okay. And I see this conversation, and I think a lot of
you're talking about American evangelicalism.
Well, you brought it up earlier on. So what's the difference then? Because I'm fundamentally Church of England, okay, and I do wholeheartedly believe in the Reformation of the Church, okay, and I don't know a lot about you guys in terms of that. So what's the general consensus over the pond? I'm really
confused. Why do you call yourself the fabulous agnostic? I have to admit I'm a little bit confused.
Okay. I thought I already answered this question. I'm fabulous and I'm agnostic.
Oh, okay.
but he's culturally Christian.
Okay. But you can. I'm culturally Christian because, like I said, I believe that you can believe in a Christian doctrine without the concept of a God. I've said that anyway. There are lots of cultural Christians in Britain. Lots of
Christian doctrine is that Jesus rose from the dead and was who he said he was.
No, I don't like if you. It's very late and I've had a bit of wine, so.
I'm sorry. Dude, look at this seconds.
Right, if we're gonna have a competition, you've had like 3 whiskeys.
Okay.
So
shouldn't an Englishman be drinking tea?
Yes. But go on, man.
But I did have some tea while you weren't looking, so I did top up my tea reserve, because there was alcohol.
But go on, say what you're gonna say, because I
don't even know what I'm gonna say.
Quite honestly, I don't know what you're getting at. So yeah,
I don't know what you want me to get at. Okay, so I don't believe that you have to believe in God, theistically speaking, to be a Christian. I don't. I can see why you would assume that you have to, and I've gone through that motion myself. But I do believe that Christianity is a force of use in the world, especially in the West. If you, and I'm going to steal a point from Brett Weinstein here, if you and the rest of your entire evolutionary gene pool was to behave as though to do good, you would go to a better place, and everything you did, cognitively speaking, would continue on, that would be useful. Okay, so from that perspective, that alone is enough, I would say. But there are 4 things I always said you have to believe in some manner to be a Christian, and I don't believe the resurrection is one of them. And you can all, fire at me and do whatever you.
Well, you obviously understand I disagree with that, but continue.
Yeah, well, what I would say is that you would have to believe in the golden rule, which I don't think I need to explain. I think we all agree with that one. You have to believe in the figure of Christ, but that's, I suppose, up for discussion. You have to believe in revelation, which I guess was also up for discussion.
Very interesting. I will say that is very surprising. Okay, continue.
Say again, sorry.
That is very surprising.
Why?
Well, I mean, if you believe in the figure of Christ, but you don't believe in the resurrection. But
okay, no. Okay, well, I guess
you believe in some form of eschatology. Can I phrase it like that?
You can say eschatology. I've always been interested in eschatology. When I say revelation, I don't necessarily mean the eschatology version of Revelation. I mean art revelation. So if you really want me to bore you with all the 4, this is what I'm writing the book on that I said I was going to write. It's called The 4 Pillars of Christianity, and I was going through the 4 things: golden rule.
I don't think I literally just did not hear what you said about.
Oh, sorry. Where would you like me to start from again?
No, it's we were at number 3. So could you shut up for 1 minute, History Net? Okay. Dude.
Oh, you hear me?
The fourth one is the logos. So the first one is did you get all 4 of those things? Did I?
I can't remember them, but yeah,
I'm struggling to remember them myself, and I'm the one who believes it. The logos, the golden rule, the revelation, and the figure of Christ. They're the 4 things it's the way that you conceptualize those things which I think is really important. The golden rule, I don't think I have to go into overly. We all know what I mean by that. The figure of Christ is probably the long-winded one. Revelation would be, if you were to consider that the biblical text and all religious text are written in a way which most things are written, i.e. art, you have to consider all of those things within that structure to be part of a psychological construct. So the snake in the Garden of Eden, it means something. The tree in the Garden of Eden, it means something. The Exodus story, it means something. All these things were not just picked at random. They were picked based on different things that are part of our evolutionary cognition.
Yeah, but when you say it's psychological, I think that's unnecessarily narrow. I think if you put it all under the umbrella of teleology, that would be perhaps a bit more allowing.
Okay, so I can Well, I've never articulated this to people.
Because when you say psychology, you say, well, it's all just things in our mind, which I think is unnecessarily narrow.
Okay, I don't think it is, but I'm not as smart as you, so maybe that will be.
I think you're giving me too much credit, but I just want to hear and understand what you're saying. And I'm also
that's fine. That's fine. If I'm not, yes, I'll just show you my wine. I suppose that's the system we're going down. But I'm not this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, so I've never really had to articulate these things.
You're not on trial here. That's the important thing.
I'm fine if I am, because at least it means that if I say something that might sound stupid, I mean, I'm saying this to the rest of the internet, to whoever's listening at this particular time. I'm okay with being pulled apart.
Me, Mr. Brass was on here earlier, and I could out stupid. Oh wait, he's still here. He's still here. Okay, I'm sorry.
You all could hear me.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I can keep going if you want to keep listening.
Yes, please.
So where was I? I don't even know. And the
yes. Well, we were talking about the 4 things you were saying was necessary to
be a Christian. Yeah. So I think
I was just a little confused about the status of Revelation in your
okay. So what I don't
tetralogy.
I don't need
Christianity.
Say again, sorry.
In your tetralogy, your word, yes.
Okay. I'm not referring to Revelation in terms of the actual book. I'm meaning to reveal a truth that is not that is intuitive, but is not necessarily obvious. Let's say, and I'll give you an example, and I hope that this works, and I hope that it might be a slight. If I leave today and you're all happy, and you think you've thought something differently, then I'm really happy. But I'll choose morality, for example. Okay, so one of the atheist arguments against morality, when you say our morality comes from God, they act as though what you mean is that God, at the beginning of time and space, dished out this magical resource and gave, well, there's some morality, there's some morality, there's some morality, and forgot about all the murderers and pedophiles. That's not the argument that theists, I don't think that theists are making or should be making. I think the argument is that if one was to act and behave as though the moral assets of the story were true, you would live a better life. You can argue about the individual moral assets, i.e. turning the other cheek, etc., But the argument generally isn't that this magical sprinkle dust that came over all of humanity when it was born. It was actually that if we were to behave as though revelation of these truths were true, or these moral assets were true, you will live a better life. So that's what I mean by revelation. I mean that the revealing of these truths, or the revealing of these pieces of information, these moral assets, or these wisdom assets, or these intrinsic assets that perform as part of the entire Christian construct, become something which by you can live, if that makes any sense.
Gotcha.
That's what I mean by revelation. Revelation is not this concept that there's this. I mean, we can talk about how revelation occurs in the actual Bible, which I haven't really got around to in full, but it's very strange. There's all this weird shit going on and all this kind of stuff. So if I were to approach revelation like I do now, I haven't really got that far.
I kind of feel stupid because I was just in the mindset of the Book of Revelation. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I mean.
Well, you look at too.
So you gonna say?
Yeah, Mr. Brass was thinking the same thing I was thinking.
I'm looking at revelation down the line of, if you were to reveal truth,
reveal religion.
That's what I'm referring to. They are the four things, and I can talk about the logos. I conceptualize the logos as obviously the word. And I do steal Peterson on this one, I guess, because he is a big influence of mine. As all of you, actually, because I've seen all of your stuff. And I look at the logos as a point by which you yourself can articulate through chaos and to disseminate order from chaos. So the fact that I can stand here and talk is a manifestation of the logos.
Yes.
In Christian doctrine. And you go, well, we can all do that in any doctrine. We don't have, but the Christian faith is the one that enshrined it in a book, in a scripture, and as part of the revelation.
Yes.
So that's what I mean by logos. In short, what I mean by the golden rule, I can already is already.
I mean, you could point to John 1 as.
Well, that's the primary text for that point. And when I do get around to maybe writing something down about it, it will be that is going to be the opening line, I guess. And then the figure of Christ. Well, there's a lot more in the figure of Christ than people give credit for. You can say lots of Christ is the physical manifestation of the cosmic logos. Christ is the culmination of cultures, classes, and self-responsibility, objective truth, justice. You can keep going with Christ. All of the positive qualities that are manifest in the figure of Christ. But I'm looking at it from also what Christ does. And one of the things I was going to start a podcast on this and talk about wine. Like, why is it wine? You know, I mean, you can say, well, culturally, wine was the thing, but why wine and not like beer? Because beer is older than wine in the way that it's made. It's more complex. Why not?
Beer was invented in 1400 by Trappist.
Well, beer. Although the Egyptians drank beer.
Beer was,
and the Vikings had meads. So
beer was invented before civilization.
Sorry, say again.
Beer was invented before civilization.
Yeah. So, but beer is far more complex to make than wine. So when you look at wine, and wine is why did Christ pick in the story? I'm referring to the story. Whether or not Christ is real is not really particularly relevant to me. It's what happens as a result of the individual within the story, and why is Christ useful, and why is Christ so popular? And wine is one of those things. Why is wine the blood of Christ? Well, wine is cross-cultured, it's cross-classed, it's cross-societal. I can make wine. I make wine myself. This is why I know, and also wine is eternal. Wine is a substance which you can pickle things in. It's useful. It can clean things. You can use wine in so many different forms. So wine is the culmination, just like Christ is the culmination of cross-cultural differences, cross-class differences, cross-gender, everything that you could possibly think of. Everyone can drink and make wine, and everyone likes wine. Well,
yes.
Used to do it. So Christ is a similar. So why is Christ's blood wine? Well, it wouldn't be beer because beer is so complex to make. It wouldn't be any. It wouldn't. Maybe it'd be Sambuca now. I guess I don't know. But like that's the point I'm making with the figure of Christ. It's what all of those things that compile to make Christ as a figure. Wine, all the things that he ever said. Any way that you can particularly take any of those things, they are the things that I have said that I think you need to believe to be Christian. Yeah, if that all makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I mean that's like an additional complexity. I have to admit I'm that's here, but it's like the loaves and the fishes that could be an allegory for Christianity as a whole. It's like, okay, well, what we were talking about is like, is Noah allegorical? Well, you could say it's a prefiguring of the resurrection. I mean, there are certainly two tiers of reading for all of these things. Yeah. So I when he asked me, I mean, is Noah and the whale, entirely allegorical? I can't answer that question, but I do think there is a strong case to be made that is at least an allegory of the resurrection.
It's interesting because when I first put this to my friends, because I have a group of friends who I meet with in the pub and all that kind of stuff, and I call them the congregation. They're my friends, and we talk about this thing. But I first approached them and said, "Can we look at this? Can we look at the Bible from an atheist perspective?" And they all went yes. And most of my friends are atheists. And well, let's pick a story and we'll reconceptualize that in a useful modern day practical term. And they picked the whale story. And I was like, okay, pick a different story because I can't do that one. Just it was a bit complex. And they picked Exodus, and I did an Exodus thing and all that kind of stuff. Just an interesting anecdote that I couldn't do that story when they picked it. When my Christian friend picked it, we did Exodus instead. Yeah. And what I would like to do is do sort of public talks based on these, because one of the things that and somebody mentioned it, I'm not sure who it was. It might have been JMD, said something along the lines of there's a disconnect between young people and the church and faith and religion and all the rest of it. And I think it's because they look at it as it was this literal evangelical happy claptrap kind of. I'm using as much negative language as I can because that's the way they look at it. I don't look at it like that myself.
Well, that kind of gets back to where we jumped off, as you were talking about our church as Americans. There is no our church as Americans. There is
okay,
as there are in England. I mean, or anywhere else.
Well, no, there is. This is the thing. I think that when we talk about the difference between American Christianity and British Christianity, I think there's a reason someone like Christopher Hitchens goes to America, okay? And the reason is he was not successful in Britain. He wasn't, because everything he was saying was already debunked, which is one of those atheist words I like to use.
Well, you could say, yeah. I mean, I've heard that as like Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins had his science popularizing show, and he was kind of a done deal in England when he came over to America, and so it was played out. But by like 2006 or so, England was already heavily secularized at that point.
Yeah, what I was going to say about secularism, I don't find me. I don't know what it's like over there, so I'm going to play ignorant, not because I am ignorant, because I don't know. People always say to me, well, I'm a secularist. And I'm like, yeah, so am I. Like, find me a person who has the same structure of belief that I do, or anywhere near it, that isn't a secularist. Like, I've never met a Christian that wasn't. And I know a lot of priests, because I hang around in these circles. And a lot of them are secular.
I'm about to leave, so I left the invite to our Discord and Hangouts.
Sure thing. We should be getting all